Hey guys, what is going on? We are back with more commentary featuring me, your host, Madman. So we're talking about a TV series, and it's got to be in my top 5, I think, for the past 10 or 15 years in terms of TV series. This shit is amazing. It's one of those things where I look at it and I go, how did this get made? Like, how did it manage to survive the industry that produced it? It's so fucking good. Got a fly rubbing its hands during the credits. Goddamn. Anyway, the series in question that we're currently watching is Sharp Objects, starring Amy Adams. And this series reminds me a lot of True Detective, Season 1. It's so careful in its progression. Its characters are so well developed. And every turn and twist of the story seems to have been crafted to both seem plausible and also extraordinary to the viewer. It's an example of good writing, is what I'm saying. You know, you can call it pretentious if you like, but it might just be that your taste is shit, or that you haven't watched enough good programming. Your taste has been tainted by bullshit. I mean, every piece of media that you see is an artful lie, but some lies are more artful than others. That's what makes the difference between a forgotten piece of schlock or a masterpiece. So if it wasn't already clear by those establishing shots, we're in a small American town. Almost seems like a Stephen King opening. It's like, what is this, taking place in the 80s or 90s? It's like, no, it's actually a present day narrative. It's just this town is kind of lagging behind. It's kind of stuck in the past. So the first episode of this series, which is very short, brevity is the soul of wit after all, is called Vanish. And we have these two girls running into a field. They're going back to their house. Another reason I want to talk about this movie, and I'll mention this now while these scenes are happening because they're more visual, is that the main character of the show, Amy Adams, is so well written, and I think she measures up exactly to Rust from True Detective, or Marty. You didn't need to turn True Detective into some kind of heavy-handed, heavily political, feminist thing when this series already exists, and this woman, our main character, is so well developed, and her actions make sense. She's intelligent. You feel for her because you understand the events that happened to her in her past. They're revealed to you slowly through the narrative. It's so artfully done that you don't need to lean on topical politics to try to bolster your shitty writing. This series, I think, this season, is proof that that's not necessary. You don't have to do that. If you just write a character well, your viewers will identify with that character, regardless of their gender, sexuality, or whatever else. And we get this great sequence with these two girls where we see her office where she's got an Obama poster. You know, she's like a late zeros, early 2010s leftist, liberal type person. We get a look into her bathroom, which is creepy. It's got the green shining tiles. And these girls are pranking her. They're trying to wake her up, poke her awake. But ooh, turns out that was a dream. And this series is great. It hypnotizes you so subtly and carefully. It doesn't overtly blast you in the face with a bunch of nonsense. It just shows you plausible scenes and then mixes them up with clever cuts. It's extremely well done. I love this series, man. This is up there with True Detective, in my opinion. And it's a murder mystery. It's part of the reason I compare it to that series. And I'm talking about the first season specifically. I know I've been talking about the second season. I'll probably finish that commentary at some point, but I'm not really motivated to do it. It's got so many problems, man. It's depressing to review it. You know, I have to resist just shitting on it without any constructive points to make. So I just don't like it. So Amy Adams in this is a journalist. That'll be revealed to us shortly. And I should say one more thing before the dialogue kicks into gear. I've tried 7 or 8 different subtitles for this, and none of them sync up correctly, which pissed me off. So I'm just going to be going with it. You know, again, I've watched this series before. I watched it a little after it came out, but, you know, it'd be nice for me to have subtitles so I can commentate upon what I'm hearing. But, anyway. Amy Adams is talking about her hometown, where all they do is kill pigs. It's an Amnesia the Dark Descent 2 Machine for Pigs type of town. And this guy, her boss, is saying, well, you know, you're in contact with your family, aren't you? You're not losing contact with your family. It's probably not a good thing. And Amy Adams is kind of being defensive and a bit resistant. She's like, well, maybe I don't want to talk to my family for a good reason. And he's sending her there on assignment. He's like, you got to go back to your old stomping grounds, your hometown. Because someone's been killed. And someone's missing. And this movie has a creepy meta tone to it, where this is sort of like Amy Adams' little Herculean test, or her little journey through hell. That's part of what makes me appreciate this, because Amy Adams has to confront some things about her past that she has failed to come to terms with. They're still haunting her. And these murders happening is almost like a little bit of divine intervention. It's like, well, reality, you know, this little D&D game we're all playing is forcing Amy Adams' character back to her hometown because she should go back. And she doesn't want to. But now she has to. A little gesture he makes with his hands. Come on, go. Worm your way up, my little demon. Oh, and she's chugging some vodka. What is it, fucking noon? Jesus Christ. I'm an alcoholic and I don't drink until it's like fucking midnight. Who the fuck drinks at noon? It's almost like that's a necessary clue. We get this creepy cut to this other woman. Ooh, is she a lesbian? We don't know. When she touched her phone, the screen was shattered in the place that you would place your thumb when you were trying to make an important gesture of some kind. Again, there's a lot of subtle things in this movie, despite the fact that it takes place in the age of normies infesting the internet and the iPhone. You have real physical objects that develop the characters. You develop your characters through their surroundings, their physical surroundings. And the real main reason I love this movie, or this series rather, is she's a Led Zeppelin fan. And goddamn, I've got a ring waiting for you, Amy Adams. You like Led Zeppelin? Let's do it. You can make crazy YouTube videos with me. You can live your best life. I won't judge you for drinking. It's perfect. The perfect relationship. God damn, I don't know what they paid to license these Led Zeppelin songs, but it was worth it. Whatever the producers paid, thank you from the bottom of my mad, crazy heart for making Led Zeppelin what she wanted to hear. I was going to say, why would you buy, like, mini bar booze? Why wouldn't you just buy a bottle? You know, wrap it in a shirt. That's what I used to do when I was drinking 3 times what I drink now. I guess the minibar shit is easier to disguise, it's easier to hide. You know, she's dosing herself, she's self medicating. That's what alcoholics do. Ooh, the toilet. How terrifying. It's got poop smears on it. This series, I should mention, is one of those things that I've come across that frightens me in a way that no A24 slow burn hereditary thing frightens me. No jump scare James Wan shit frightens me. This is frightening if you have an IQ above room temperature. This should frighten you. This woman's habits, her sense of self, these flashbacks she has, how fucked up and creepy it all is. That's frightening. Trauma is frightening, real trauma. What's not frightening is some demon face that flashes at you for 2 seconds. Ooh, so spooky. That's not scary. What's scary is shit that you can't banish from your own mind. How you're possessed by your own memories, by your own experiences. That's terrifying. Existential horror is the end point of horror. You can't get scarier than that. And you don't have to be a genius to feel that, to appreciate it. It's not some kind of walled off esoteric shit. Anybody can feel that. You just have to pay fucking attention. If your attention span's too short for this type of shit, guys, I mean, I'm not talking to you. You've clicked off the video already. You're not even watching this. I'm talking to people who still have an attention span, aka they still have a soul. Because if you can't force your meat spacesuit brain to focus on something that it doesn't want to focus on a primal level, you're an NPC golem with no soul. And your death is not really a death. It's like a deactivation. You're not even human. A zombie is more human than you. Anyway, rubber banding back to what we're seeing. There's this sort of porno shack in the woods. And I guess maybe this is a Midwest American thing or whatever. But people would hide porn in the woods. I guess that was a thing. You know, for the Gen Xers in my audience, who are 7 to 12 years older than me. You know, before the internet, you had to have physical porn. It was printed on pages. So this woman, our main character, part of her sexual awakening was finding this secret gooning shed in the woods. That was where the porn was hidden. But it wasn't just a porno shed. There was creepy shit going on. As we saw, there was guts laid out on a table. There was all sorts of creepy shit. And as a young girl, you know, she had friends with pop guns running through the woods. I'm gonna shoot you with my pop gun. It's America, 1981, you know. Again, this series is trafficking in some generationally specific ideas. The only reason I identify with them is because I'm a creepy empath, and I'm fascinated by people whose life experiences I have no access to. So I gravitate towards other generations, the boomers, the Gen Xers, because the fact that their experiences are different than mine is interesting in and of itself, and I want to try to sort of vicariously understand that shit. So it gets me up in the morning, trying to understand different generations. It's interesting. It's because I'm a time traveler from 500 years in the future. You might think I would think all this shit is quaint. I don't. It's very creepy. It's as creepy as my time period's shit would seem to you if you jumped forward 500 years. You'd be creeped out. You'd go insane. Anyway, my point with all this shit is just that we're going to see throughout this series different sort of memory flashbacks of Amy Adams' character. And I think they're done very well in this. They're not built up to, they're cut to in a way that doesn't seem too quick, and at the same time, they're quick enough that they feel like flashes of memory that you might have. You know, you as a viewer, when you smell something like cotton candy or pancakes or something, you're going to remember, oh, my grandma made me pancakes that one time. Memory is instantaneous when it rushes back to you. And this series is able to visually represent that instantaneous flashing of memory so well. There's very few TV shows that I've seen that have been able to do this. Even Deadwood doesn't even try to do it. It's got its own constraints and goals as a series, but the only series that's ever done this well is True Detective Season 1. Midnight Mass tries to do it, but they aren't confident enough in their ability, in the ability, rather, of their editor. Whoever edited this is a fucking genius. I'd love to have drinks with this guy and be like, how did you convince the producers to have these memory flashbacks? Because they're done so perfectly in this, man. And in this scene, we have some interesting blocking choices, too. She's talking to the police chief here, right? There's a long, old-fashioned desk pen that's pointed right at the center of her neck, or right up towards her neck. And of course, rubber banding back to the plot, the police chief is concerned, are you going to write about our town like it's some serial killer hive? Like, I can't have that. And she's like, well, first of all, this is my hometown, so no, I'm not going to besmirch my hometown unnecessarily. Second of all, it's my job. You're a cop. There might be guys you don't want to lock up. There might be guys you don't want to beat up, but you have to because it's your job. Her argument is pretty sound. She's like, I'm just doing my fucking job. And again, we as viewers understand that she's not here by her own choice. She's here because she was assigned to be here. And she's smart. She's using her feminine wiles. She frames it like, if you don't talk to me, then I have more license to speculate, which is what you're afraid of. So why not just fucking tell me something so that I can quote you, and your validity and your legitimacy as a supporter of your town's general reputation will be maintained. So she's very smart, very wily. And at the same time, her boss is like, look, we need an article. It has to have some kind of spin. It has to be a story. That's another thing I love about this series is it talks about the importance of stories in media. And not a lot of content will do this artfully. It's very easy to take a very smooth brain, left or right, one or two, black or white perspective and go, well, you're either doing things right or wrong. And it's like, no, watch this series. This town is not nothing. It's composed of people with different lives. You can't default to some false objectivity or generalization because you're going to be running over people like you're driving a truck over a bunch of numbed bodies. You've got to talk to people, and that's what good journalists do. And this woman, our main character, despite her flaws, she's a good journalist. She's committed to her job. That's what makes her interesting as a character. She's not incompetent. She's not stupid. She makes mistakes, but they're not stupid mistakes. They're not mistakes that arise from her latent stupidity. They're mistakes that arise from lack of information, miscommunication, Shakespearean chaos. The types of things that make narratives interesting and the types of things that make life interesting. The mistakes we make if we're good people are not our fault. They're the fault of fate. And that's so frustrating. And the temptation is to blame a person or blame yourself for things that are objectively not in your control. And shitty characters and stupid characters will do that. Good characters will resist that. They might fall prey to it, but they resist it. That's what makes them believable. That's what makes the audience go, oh shit, I hope Amy Adams succeeds because she feels like a real person. Emotionally, I'm attached to her because logically she makes sense. Logic is the foundation of emotion. The invisible foundation of emotion is logic. And the whetstone of logic is emotion. When logic is too sharp or too dull, it needs to grind itself against emotion to fix itself. But emotion without a bedrock of logic is just insanity. Anyway, rubber banding back to things. Amy Adams is like, oh, you're my kooky aunt who still lives in a rural town. We all have one of those in our family, and they're usually really good people. They're eccentric, but they're great people. They're usually just very generous and a little weird. They got that reddish blonde hair, strawberry blonde. And she's supporting the men. What I like about this series too, the characters that we're most focused on are female, but the series does not come across as some kind of blatant psyop, Lilith, feminine propaganda. These are just people, and it just so happens our main character is a woman. It just so happens that she has to speak with the women in her family to figure out what's going on. That's interesting. It's interesting because the characters feel like real people. They feel like consciousnesses that are more than their bodies. Through their behavior and through what's done to them and how they respond to it, how they respond to fate, they are three-dimensional. We get this different perspective, but it's not shoved down our throats. It's not done with some political agenda. You get the sense that you're a fly on the wall, which all viewers really are, that's just watching what's going on. This is just a story that just happened, and you just happen to be able to see it. That's amazing. If a series can maintain that. This does it in some ways even better than True Detective Season 1, in my opinion, because it's so personal. And the cutbacks to the little flashes of memory. You know, she's popping nicotine gum. Someone wrote dirt on the back of her car. She has a low opinion of herself. She thinks she's shit. Someone writes dirt on her car. It flashes back to her, you know? That's brilliant. That's so visually rich because that type of mental process that we've all endured and that has been a part of our day-to-day life for years. Again, if you're not an idiot, this has happened to you, this type of thing where a memory rushes back to you. And this show portrays that event of that little memory coming back to you. It does such an artful job of showing the viewer that that's what this character's remembering. And again, it sounds like I'm being obvious, you know. But again, you got to realize so few series, TV shows, movies, whatever, even books, they can't accomplish this. They can't do it. They don't get it. It's so rare that you get the chance to see something like this. Really, it's the rarity that makes it amazing. So, again, watch this shit. Watch it without my commentary, to be honest. And here's the two sisters. Here's a memory. When she sat down on this porch, this is what came to her mind. And she's feeling and seeing this memory the way that we're seeing it as viewers. We're being given a glimpse into her mind. A series that develops a character well enough and has the balls to be confident in its visuals to say, you're looking into this character's mind. That is crazy difficult to pull off. That's like betting everything on, black number 1 in roulette and winning. Like, this series is so crazy. It's so good, man. Even the characters that are villainous, even the ones that are ambiguous, they all have a past and they all have behaviors that make sense. This is really like an award-winning novel. This is how to adapt something to a screen. I'd put this on par with Lord of the Rings in terms of how well it adapts its source material, because I'm pretty sure there's a novel behind this. I'm pretty sure it was a book that inspired this series. If it wasn't, it's 5 times more impressive. Anyway, Amy Adams' performance in this is so brilliant. She's so stilted and nervous. It's like she doesn't even want to talk to her parents. It's like she doesn't even want to be in the same room as them. But she's trying to be stoic. She's trying to just exist in this space because her profession has forced her to do it. It's like she's still afraid of her parents, despite the fact that she's an adult, despite the fact that she's independent. She's afraid of them. And as viewers, when you notice her mannerisms and you look at her face, if you're over the age of 22 and you can interpret facial expressions properly, you can recognize how nervous she is. She doesn't want to be here because her fight or flight response is fluttering in her chest. She doesn't want to be close to these people, but she's forced to. And at the same time, she's sympathetic. She doesn't hate them. She doesn't want to kill them. But she's afraid of them. She's afraid of being near them. She feels like she's going back in time, like she's regressing just by being here. It's a frightful thing. And again, if you have a family that is good enough that you've kept connection with them, eventually, if you haven't already, you're going to recognize what their flaws are. And there's a real danger that you'll replicate their mistakes if you respect them. That's a real danger. Again, it's part of the existential and psychological dimension of this show. It's what makes it worth watching. Because it doesn't matter where you grew up or what your history is, as long as you're white. You've been through this, and you've seen some version of this play out in your life. Maybe a sibling went through it. Whatever. But this scenario is not uncommon, and that's why it's so salient and so valuable and so well used as a basis for this show. It's not some weird, outlandish, cartoonish thing. It's a common event that happens in your life. You go back to see your parents. Maybe you move in with them because you're not doing so well. Either way, you're confronted by the childhood assumptions you made about your parents' authority that twisted your own sense of yourself and what your strengths are, because you were just trying to impress your parents. So you made certain decisions, you made certain choices, maybe big choices, maybe choices you can't undo or go back from, that are tied right back to this house, to these people. It's the horror of of childhood overvaluation of parental instruction. And it's tied to memory. And right now we're seeing another memory where Amy Adams' character runs away and then we don't even cut. It's so beautiful. She woke up from a dream. And from personal experience, let me tell you, when you're drinking, you have DTs or delirium tremens where you'll have waking dreams that occur between your state of wakefulness and when you're asleep. And oftentimes your dreams will intrude as kind of sleep paralysis, quick hallucinations, or you won't dream because you're too drunk. And that type of scene where Amy Adams sees a memory of herself, her childhood self, and tries to chase it out of the room. She gets up out of bed and tries to chase her childhood self out of her room. My God, that's good, man. Again, you don't have to have gone through alcoholism or known anyone who has to appreciate this series. It's just that how it portrays its characters is brilliant. He's got Maker's Mark. That shit, man. I haven't drank that in about 20 years because I got so fucked up on it. I never wanted to touch it again. If you want to drink wine or cognac. That's my advice. The chemical composition of those substances is far more conducive to a healthy form of alcoholism than any other type of alcohol. The ancients knew what they were doing when they made wine. And cognac is just, it's concentrated wine. Mix it with a bit of water, a bit of fizzy water maybe. You'll be all good. Beer and whiskey are ruinous. Scotch is an indulgence that I can't help but enjoy. Scotch is very good. So at this bar, the bartender's trying to nudge our character towards some wayward little guy in a hoodie. And this dude comes and interrupts fate. A sugary passive aggression. Welcome to good writing, viewers. That is a hell of a line. Sugary passive aggression? Damn, man. That's so fucking good. So Amy Adams is, of course, interviewing him as a journalist. She can't shed that journalist persona because the whole nature of that persona is you're going to wear it like a discount secret agent. When you talk to other people, you're always actually recording what they're saying. Everything's on record. And again, this guy's not an idiot. He's not stupid. He says, that's a good line, but I know what you're doing. I'm not a moron. Man, isn't it great to have characters that aren't retards? God, it's so rare these days, man. So fucking rare. Man, she's cutting into him. He's like, everyone's a suspect. She's like, okay, so that's cope for the fact that you don't actually have any suspects. God damn. Cutting into this guy with a fucking samurai sword. Whew. And then he straight up cold shoulders her. He's like, well, if you're going to fuck with me, I'll just go off and eat peanuts in the corner. Good man. That was the right move to make. Again, smart guy. He knows when to get out of the conversation. He has nothing to offer her. She has nothing to offer him. Sever the conversation clean. Don't drag it out. Socially intelligent. Very good man. Very good character. And I love that she's toasting the bartender, man. God damn. I've thought at times I should be a bartender because, man, it'd be so much fun. You can't be a drunk, but at the same time, you gotta know how to hold your liquor, and you gotta know how to talk to people at various states of emotional distress or, you know, wherever they are. I feel like if Christ came back, he'd come back as a bartender. That's what he'd be. You know? Imagine a modern Jesus as a bartender. Maybe Satan owns a nightclub across the street. There's a premise for a fucking TV show right there. Christ is trying to help out people at his bar. Satan's trying to tempt them to get STDs. Every STD they get, they're a step closer to hell. God damn! The way she's fucking jamming to Zeppelin. I've literally done that. I've been as drunk as her, fucking headbanging to Zeppelin. That's fucking awesome, man. If I met this chick in this story, I'd be like, "Come up with me to Canada, my love. You won't have to hide your drunkenness. We're all alcoholics up in Canada. We've taken the Scandinavian pill, which is to be drunk when winter hits you. Fight winter with alcohol. Artificial warmth." So she just spent the night in her car. Not exactly a very glamorous evening. Even a Motel 6 would have probably been a better option. Now she's driving up to her folks. And again, she's got this ancient, 1990s car. And this series, if I'm not mistaken, it takes place in at least the late 2010s, if not the 20-tweens. And here's her boomer parents hoarding the wealth of the entire country in a giant mansion, just so they can have eggs with chives. If we can't have eggs with chives, we're not even human. Each cup of coffee we make costs $18 in terms of energy use and Cambodian and Haitian children killed through convoluted economic channels. Everything we do is a blood sacrifice concealed by kitschy 60s material shit. Notice how they're lit in red like that recent painting of King Charles, where he's like a demon? That painting is so fucking nuts, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine justifying it. She goes, I'm so much of a victim. You know, people blame Gen X and Gen Z for inventing the victimhood excuse. You know who really invented it? Boomers. They had the most laissez-faire, generous generation ever. And the way that they defend themselves against criticism is they say that they're victims. And you know what? You reap what you sow. Sins of the father visited upon the son. Your next generation is going to use the victimhood excuse against you. Just like you taught them to because you were using it. You created that politics, that environment. And poor Amy Adams, she's an honorable person in this. I have so much sympathy for her character. She actually cares about her parents, despite the fact that they're both spoiled shitheels that have never confronted death, they've never confronted real pain or suffering, or if they have, they've just numbed themselves with booze. Who cares? Or they've numbed themselves with pills. I can get a prescription where I can be drunk and not seem like I am. Or even if I do, I just say, well, it's because of the pills. What do you think the pills do? They do the same thing alcohol does. It's the same shit. Has the same effect on the brain. It affects the same serotonin receptors that alcohol does. It's just a different cloaking of that cope. And the boomers are so goddamn neo-Victorian. They want to be socially presentable to the point where they rot themselves by doing it. You know what? They deserve to rot. They deserve every cancer they've ever had. They deserve to rot from the inside in the longest, most protracted way possible. Because that's what they've taught their children to do. You don't teach your children through diktats or texts or speech. You teach them through behavior. Your children mimic your behavior, not your speech. Even if they can mimic your speech, in reality, they're mimicking your behavior, not what you said. They're mimicking what you did. That's why Gen X and Gen Z are either totally bathed and drowning in the internet, or they are ensconced in some narrative of victimhood to try to strangle money out of whatever corporation or group will slough off laundered tax money from infant killing onto their victim narrative. I mean, they're ready to receive whatever energy they're able to get because their parents taught them that victimhood is the defense against someone criticizing your opulence. Someone who recognizes your advantage is going to try to tell you that you are better than them. So the basic way of responding to that is to say, well, no, I've got all these diseases. I'm actually autistic. I'm gay. I'm whatever. That's the defense. I mean, it's pathetic. It's a pathetically obvious defense. It's obvious even to idiots. Anyway, speaking of idiots, Amy Adams is interviewing this guy about his missing daughter. So let's rubber band back to the show. And Amy Adams, you know, she's being professional. She's got the shield of alcohol up. She's got her Minecraft shield with mending on it. She's gaining XP from this mob. He's a villager. She's doing a trade with him. You give me information, I will give you part of the presence of human shit in this article. You know, that's fair. You don't open your parents' door without knocking. What's wrong with you? Sorry guys, I gotta side with the dad on this point. You know, someone's in a bathroom stall, you knock. Your parents are in their room, you fucking knock. Doesn't take much effort. And she's a kid. Whatever. Oh, this guy got accused of abusing his kid. God damn. Again, the balls this series has to confront these issues. And of course, the easy excuse is the town gay guy, you know, whoever he is. And again, gay guys have done a lot of heinous shit. They have higher rates of abuse. That's not wrong. So it makes gay people want to just kill themselves when they realize they are, because they're like, oh, I'm part of this group? Holy shit. But again, we don't know yet, in this series narrative, whether this guy actually did anything. We're not sure. And I like the brown shirt he was in. It was like a World War II Army shirt. aesthetically. Again, the aesthetic choices in this are very symbolically cognizant. They're very on point. They have associations that make sense in the overall narrative. However you interpret them, you can interpret them in a half dozen ways. Whichever way you interpret that, it makes sense in the context of the narrative, which is the number one important thing. Number one is that it makes sense. Your characters are grounded, they seem human. Number two, you have opportunities for people to interpret details of set design and costumes that are beyond the realm of logic. They're emotional interpretations. And when a series does well, it's because it offers its viewers a myriad of different ways to interpret what they're seeing that are equally valid. That's, internet. If internet flame wars have taken place over your creation, then it's successful. That's how you know it's done well. You've reached multiple people of different opinions and backgrounds, but you've done it without abusing their tribal competitive instinct. You've done it in a way that is beneficial to the product, the art, the show. That needs to be the number one thing. Because if that doesn't hold up, it doesn't matter what interpretations end up winning in the cultural dialogue. If the series can't convince one group to pay more attention to it than another, or to interpret it in one way versus another group's interpretation, that's the mark of a good series, because the series has challenged everyone. It's transcended tribalism, which is very difficult to do. And I think this series manages to do it. I haven't heard many people talk about this, and I haven't seen a lot of criticism about this, positive or negative, which is disheartening, because the quality of this is really above board. It's higher than most series that you'll watch. The cinematography, the cuts, the costumes and sets notwithstanding, those are not difficult to nail. It's the editing of this. The editor of this series nailed it. So, of course, this cop brings her some booze. He knows who she is, knows who her family is. Good man. It's her medicine. It's her Oxycontin. It's her Zoloft. It's her Zopiclone. It's her Quetiapine. It's all the same shit. Keep that in mind. Just because it's in a liquid form in a bottle and sold by a different corporate entity doesn't mean that its effect or its intent is different. It's all medication, and we're all under the aegis of our drugs. All of us. They all have side effects you can't see. Zoloft and Quetiapine fuck with your kidneys. Alcohol fucks with your liver. It's a demonic bargain. Just pick your poison, literally, One is not better than the other until it affects your work. If it makes it so you can't work, pick a different poison. That's reality. Ooh, John King, who could that be? Oh, her epic parents, they're so Victorian and posh and clean looking. There's no way they've done anything in the shadows that would be totally repugnant and deserving of execution. And there's her younger sister. The sister who stayed behind. The sister who stayed with the parents. How did she survive? How did she keep her soul? You got a southern curfew. If you wander into the pig slaughtering plant, they could mistake you for a pig and cut your head off. They could mistake you for long pig, because a lot of pork products in North America are actually people who've been killed. But that's an occult secret. Shh, keep it secret, keep it safe. Then we have the epic dollhouse. Again, there's a dollhouse in the movie Hereditary. This dollhouse, 1,000 times creepier. Especially once you watch the last episode of this. 1,000 times scarier. Very creepy shit. Even though I made you a drunk through my habits, you gotta eat food even when you got no appetite. Just force it down your gullet. Fuck you. Rather starve myself to death. You Bene Gesserit witch cunt. Ooh, they're standing before the door, the epic door. Of course it's like a museum, it's a white person's house. Fucking hell, my shit that I have is arranged like a museum. Just how vampires like their decor. They like things to endure, like they do. They like to be reassured that they'll be brought back. Again and again. I mean, I don't disagree with her sister. Amy Adams as an actress. I mean, she's the prettiest girl I've seen in this series. If feminine wiles still had any effect on me, physical or psychological, I would probably go for Amy Adams. It's a relief to be immune to that shit. The lack of attraction. It's a type of freedom people don't experience. To not want it. That's freedom. To be beyond wanting it. To not care. Ah, and then we have a funeral. Funeral memory. This funeral is very poorly lit. No funeral would be this dark. I don't know, maybe it was some kind of religious shit. Okay, the crowd is dark, but the funeral area is well lit. Okay. Again, this series contradicts my criticisms before I can even finish them. It's very good. The open casket funeral. We'd like you to stare death in the face. We don't know if this is a dream or a nightmare or a vision or a memory. That's what I love about this series. It doesn't specify this shit. It's just, this is what the character is seeing in their mind. It develops the character through these visions that are visual. They are not exposition dumps. They are shown to you. Even the sound is muted. You're just supposed to see what you saw. Brilliant writing. Absolutely brilliant. Amy Adams is having her Evian and vodka for the evening. Very good. We all have our medicines, don't we? Some people medicate with food. They just overeat and get fat. Other people take pharmaceuticals. Other people take herbal things. Other people take pharmaceuticals. Some people take a little bit of everything, which I think is the best. You got to take a little bit of every poison. Then you're cognizant of everybody's sins. Oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with her back? She didn't want to pay for tattoos, guys, so she just decided to carve into her own skin what was relevant to her. It's a way to save money on tattoos. That's the real reason she did it. Because tattoos are expensive. Scars are cheap. They're just as permanent. A lot of native tribes do it. You know what? You're a racist if you think self-scarring is mentally aberrant. If you think it's a sign of mental illness, you're just someone who hasn't researched the history of tribal skin manipulation and scarring. It's actually a very normal thing in human history to cut up your own skin. It's actually, you know what? It's probably really healthy for you to do that. We should all probably be doing that. That's, I think, what this episode is really trying to say. You know, I'm a politically correct-minded person. I think that's what this series is really trying to say. So if you're politically correct, you better agree with what this series is saying. Or else, maybe you're not very politically correct. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Credits are rolling, so I'm going to end the recording. I'm definitely going to do more of this. I love this series, as I've no doubt gushed about. I hope you enjoy it too. I hope you watch it without my commentary. It's a very good series. That having been said, thank you for watching. Hope you're doing well. Take your vitamins, drink your water, and, as always, peace out.